This presentation intends to analyze Germaine de Stael's own literature in terms of its author's position in her society. On Literature was written in 1800, that was the aftermath of the French Revolution and the time of rapid changes. Feudal aristocracy had already lost its status, which it had had for centuries, and sovereign states had begun to rise from multi-ethnic empires. And as a result, every state wanted to promote its distinctive features and establish itself as a nation. Germaine de Stael, the author of On Literature, could be considered the embodiment of Otherness in terms of nationality, religion, and gender as well. She was of foreign descent at a time which celebrated ethnic purity. She was a Protestant in the Catholic France, and last but not least, was a woman in a male-dominated society. With regard to de Stael's nationality, she was a citizen of Geneva, and she was Swiss by marriage. She considered herself French, though, as can be seen from her reminiscences, because she was born on the banks of the Seine. Yet, she only claimed French citizenship in 1803. Germaine de Stael was a very well-educated woman and had brilliant conversational skills. She was popular with outstanding figures of the time, and she hosted one of the most famous salons in which many of the political intrigues of the time unfolded. Germaine de Stael was a controversial public figure. She was a moderate in favor of both liberty and property, and as a result she did not identify with any political formation of the time. And her position was very precarious, because during the reign of terror she had lost many of her friends and ran the risk of being executed herself. The fact that de Stael was a Protestant in the Catholic France could easily make her stand out in a negative way. At the same time, her different religion gave her some financial rewards, as Catholics were prevented from lending money at high interest, and as a result her father, who was not a Catholic, had been permitted to gain a fortune in banking. As de Stael herself claims, the aim of On Literature is to examine the influence of religion, custom and law upon literature, and the influence of literature upon religion, custom and law. She presents therefore literature as the intellectual regulator of its era and the index of a culture's contribution to humanity. In On Literature, she makes an overview of traditional literary genres in the light of major institutions which operate in all historic societies, such as religion. According to de Stael, by studying history we become convinced that all the most significant events lead to the same end, the civilizing of the world. This introduces the concept of perfectibility, which follows the spirit of evolutionism. Evolutionism was based on the claim that organisms increase in complexity over time, and this applies also to culture and society. It was a prominent paradigm of the time, as can be seen by the example of Darwin. According to On Literature, the North takes precedence over the South, whereas the Southern cultures have only chronological priority over the Northern ones. The criteria she uses for this classification is the value ascribed to women, the prominent religion of a culture, and the tolerance it displays, all reflected in literature. In On Literature, climate acquires ontological dimensions and has a direct effect on the literary heritage. She draws connections between external factors and the collective unconscious, such as Phoebus, the god of sun, who makes his presence obvious in southern literature. The poets of the South, in her own words, cannot describe even the pleasures of the heart without combining with them the idea of a benevolent shade that protects them from the burning heat of the sun. And she also comments that a burning sun stirs up all the sensations and must induce voluptuousness. The novel climate has a different effect on people. As she says, the spectacle of nature powerfully affects them, and it makes them exactly like their climate, always dark and moody. This dark matter of the North is much more conducive to introspection and melancholy, because, as she says again, sadness leads us to probe much more deeply into the character and destiny of man than does any other disposition of the mind. Moving on to the subject of religion, she analyzes the fact that the pagan classical religion draws no clear boundaries between heroes and gods. Heroes and gods, as she says, were mingled because help was sought from both, and the lofty deeds of battle made great impression upon fire and spirit. She also comments that gods and goddesses reproduce stereotypes associated with their gender, for example jealousy for the women or strength for the men. Concerning Christianity in general, de Stael points out that the Christian religion, in the era of its establishment, was absolutely indispensable to the process of civilization and to the blending of the spirit of the North with the customs of the South. Moving on, she also comments on the way European nations observe their religion, and mentions that Italians are wretchedly superstitious in the observances of Catholicism, but they do not believe in the indissoluble union of morality and religion. She mentions also that the English practice Christianity following rather strict religious notions. When it comes to Protestant religion, she places it higher than any other, and considers it the most tolerant and open-minded, because, as she says, Protestantism harbors no active germ of superstition, yet lends virtue all the support it can extract from sensibility. In the countries where the Protestant religion is professed, it does not retard philosophical inquiry at all, and effectively upholds morality. Concerning the position of women in antiquity, de Stael criticizes the ancient world for diminishing the female element from all aspects of society. Women either were confined to the house or resorted to prostitution. This resulted in the ancient world failing to formulate a natural idea of love. She points out that there seemed to be utter lack of respect even to the motherly figure, and uses an example from the Odyssey. Telemachus orders Penelope to be silent, and she lives imbued with admiration for his wisdom. When it comes to the women of her own time, de Stael links the education of women with the nature of the country's constitution, and makes some brief descriptions about the position of women in various European countries. In England, she says, women enjoy the love of their families to the highest degree. In Spain, the Moorish gallantry of men offers them a very satisfactory life, and in France, they are allowed to flourish in a wider social circle. Still, she does not seem so eager to promote the rights of non-educated women, as she claims that it would certainly be much better in general if women devoted themselves solely to the domestic virtues. The chapter entitled Women Who Cultivate Literature is obviously much closer to her heart and interests. In there, she creates a persona which is similar to herself and at the same time dissimilar to the majority of women. It's an attempt to defend the notion of a woman who is intelligent and politically active, in which she accuses women of joining the men in the criticism of such a woman. And she describes, when women write, the public, generally assuming that the primary motive is the desire to show their cleverness, senses that they cannot do without approval, and this gives rise to the temptation to withhold it. On literature has been criticized of a tendency to view nations as concrete entities unaltered in space and time. It has also been stated that it makes no reference to the various strata and subgroups of interest operating within the society. Moreover, it has been claimed that women's inferior positions in society is thoroughly analyzed, yet neither reasons nor solutions are proposed. There is not even a suggestion for improvement to the lives of ordinary uneducated women. All in all, it could be said that on literature is organized diachronically, viewing history as a continuing process from the ancient past to de Stael's own time and even the future. It spans more than 2 millennia of history and offers a holistic view in the logic of the encyclopedia, which was on the rise at the time. Although literature is structured and organized diachronically, its intentions are very much concentrated on de Stael's present time. She sees her literary material through the prism and values of her own time, and organizes her arguments with the aim of supporting her standing in the French society, in which, as we have seen, held a very precarious position. All in all, on literature favors a culture with no religious or nationalistic fanaticism, where a woman of letters would be accepted as an equal to men, and where the principles of noble culture would be the rule. All these were just what she needed in order to promote her standing in the French society. Germaine de Stael wrote at the height of European Romanticism, when there was a tendency to create an authorial persona as a misunderstood loner and as a brooding, tormented soul, dramatic and damned. The search for a place within male history was most fundamentally for her a search for a place for herself, that is, a place for a special woman, different from others, more talented, more energetic, more ambitious. In other words, throughout on literature, the authorial voice represents the ultimate otherness. Thank you very much.